Gears of War Eday is the origin story of Marcus and Dom, and of course it's the origin story of where it all began, the event that started it all, Emergence Day. But although this is the origin story of Eday, which COG characters will we see appear in the story other than Marcus and Dom? We've already discussed Tai Kaliso, but let's discuss other fan favourites and even side characters from the trilogy, the books, the comics and more. Well, as always, I'm your host Abz. There are just so many characters we need to discuss, so without further ado, let's get into this. So firstly, I'm just going to reiterate from my last video that I am 99% sure our boy Tai Kaliso will be in the game, since Tai was part of the COG during the Pendulum Wars, and in the comics, he is seen alongside Marcus and Dom as the war ended. Also, 1 year after Eday, he was still serving alongside Marcus and Dom, which is also tied into the Mark II Lancer Chainsaw origins. Number 83, the Cole Train. Now, Augustus Cole wasn't even part of the COG army on Eday, he was still a Thrashball star. His parents were unfortunately killed on Emergence Day, and he wanted to avenge them and do his part. He joined the COG around 5 to 6 days later, so will we see the Cole Train in the game? Marcus and Dom of course knew of him since he was a Thrashball star, but they didn't meet him until 14 years later during the Light Mass Offensive in Gears 1, where the Cole Train was one of the remnants of Alpha Squad.
Sweet. 3. Damn. The one and only, baby. Remember this guy? He played for the Cougars, defensive lineman. We saw you play.
That's right. Everybody wants to see the train, baby.
Hey, Marcus. Remember? Division playoffs? 40-yard line?
I remember you owe me $20.
Oh yeah? See me after the war.
I think he could appear in a cutscene though, during the peace period after the Pendulum Wars, showing how life was like on Sera, where many fans absolutely adored the sport, and most importantly the Cole Train. Especially if you remember in the Gears of War Eday trailer reveal, there's an action figure of him seen, so that could be potentially foreshadowing his appearance. Moving on to the blonde genius, Damon Baird. He joined the COG on Emergence Day. He's pretty much in the same boat as Cole. They didn't encounter Marcus and Dom until Gears 1.
Copy that. Well, we sure as shit can't stay here. You're Baird. Yeah, that's right, asshole. Question is, who are you?
But Baird did hear Marcus on comms shortly after Eday, during the events of Gears Judgment.
This is Omega 2. We're pinned down 2 blocks from the museum. We need an evac.
We're mobilizing, Sergeant. We can have a Raven to you in an hour.
We don't have an hour.
We could be there a whole lot sooner.
I'm gonna rescue Omega.
So this time around, we could just be hearing Baird on comms. It really is unfortunate that Cole and Baird won't be in our squad in Gears of War Eday. Delta Squad are the best, man. They're such a complete unit and they all complement each other so well. But I guess we just have to accept that Marcus and Dom were just doing their own thing, and Baird and Cole were busy serving together as well. The two duos just didn't encounter each other until many years later. It's really sad that we won't get Delta Squad in its best form, but I guess that'll just make us appreciate Gears 1 to 3 even more. One gear that appeared in the comics and the books was Padrick Salton, a South Islander gear who was known as being one of the greatest snipers in the Pendulum Wars. The interesting thing about this character is that he was actually serving alongside Marcus, Dom and Tai 1 year after Eday, when Tai saved Marcus by slicing a locust drone in half with a power saw. He witnessed the origins of the Lancer Chainsaw firsthand. He was impressed, and he wondered if the bayonet could be changed as well. So I really do wonder if Pad Salton appears in Gears of War Eday. His dynamic with Tai was pretty cool and funny, so he could potentially be our 4th squad member in the game. He was a veteran of the Pendulum Wars, and he was a lot older than Marcus and Dom. He was 35 when Eday took place, so having him in our squad in the game would definitely offer something different for sure. I think he could represent a bit of the old guard in that squad. Next, I want to talk about Carlos Santiago, Dom's older brother and Marcus's best friend. Since Gears of War Eday is the story of many origins, including being the origin of Marcus and Dom's brotherhood, if Gears Eday has a prologue of the Pendulum Wars, then I think Carlos Santiago's death should take place in the game. He actually dies on the battlefield during the Battle of Asphalt Fields, where he pulled the pin on his grenade and killed himself in order to save Marcus and the others from UIR reinforcements, but this was after he was severely wounded. In my opinion, I think including this scene in a prologue would add a lot of depth to Marcus and Dom's backstory in the game, especially since I would assume Carlos will be heavily mentioned during the game. Seeing Carlos Santiago is a must in my opinion. Marcus's father, Adam Fenix. I think we've got to see him in the game in some way, shape or form, but I think he will just be more behind the scenes and mentioned quite a bit by Marcus and Dom. I think he could be in a cutscene involving the Lancer Chainsaw's actual creation behind the scenes, as well as being seen working on the stolen Hammer of Dawn technology, and being in frequent meetings with COG leadership. Adam Fenix is a must for Gears of War Eday. Now since it is Emergence Day, I think it's only right to see Dom's wife, his kids, and potentially even his parents. Seeing how his parents died alongside his kids, and seeing how Dom and Maria tried to cope with all the events that took place, how they dealt with having so many of their loved ones being taken away from them, that is going to be really heartbreaking to see, man, and especially seeing Maria once again. It will also add a lot of depth and backstory to Dom's arc in the trilogy as well. Moving on to Anya Stroud. She was in the Gears 4 prologue, which actually showcased Emergence Day itself. She was seen alongside Colonel Hoffman and Minh Young Kim in the COG capital city of Afera. She wasn't in Kelowna like how Marcus and Dom were, and I wish we could contact her on Control as the game progresses, because we always need Anya's know-how, but it's likely that we can't even contact Control due to the amount of destruction on Emergence Day, and with the COG not being able to deal with, and just being unaware of the Cedars as well at this particular time. Contact with the rest of Sarah just wouldn't be available. I think you have no contact with Command in Gears Eday. You have to fight and survive in utter carnage with no help. Colonel Hoffman was seen in the Gears 4 prologue as well on the Eday section. Now you gotta have the big Hoff in the game, right? I'm sure Hoffman will make his way into the game one way or another. Probably a short cameo of him giving orders as per usual. As the colonel of the COG army, I think he will make his mark on the game. We also have the colonel of the Onyx Guard, Ezra Pound Loomis. He would have been busy holding the city of Halvor Bay alongside the Onyx Guard, so yeah, I really doubt he would appear in Gears Eday. At the end of the Pendulum Wars and start of the Locust War, the chairman of the COG wasn't Richard Prescott, who we saw in Gears 2 and 3. It was actually Chairman Thomas Dalyell, the chairman who led the COG to win the 79-year-long war against the UIR. I think it's a must to see Chairman Thomas Dalyell, or at least see him on the television as he tries to reassure citizens that the COG are on the front lines, suppressing the monstrous threat. But in reality, the COG are defeated, and almost everyone is now just fighting for self-survival. The head gear officer of the COG during the end times of the Pendulum Wars, and during the first year of the Locust War, was General Padrick Salton. He appeared in the comics as well as the books. He was above Hoffman in military ranking, and therefore if he is in the game, I'd say expect to see him in meetings alongside Adam Fenix and Chairman Dalyell as they discuss Adam Fenix's progression of the Hammer of Dawn technology, and just also showcasing the COG leadership's inability to fight back against the genocidal Locust Horde. The COG leadership will quickly be out of ideas and out of options, with other COG nations just trying to save themselves. Minh Young Kim. He was seen in the Gears 4 prologue as well. He was in Afera, and so I doubt Minh will be in the game. To be honest, I think Min's story has hit its max potential anyway. They even added him in Ram's shadow to give his history with Ram some backstory. And also, I don't want it to be too similar to the start of Gears 1, when Marcus meets Min and joins Delta. Next, we have Dizzy Wallin. On Emergence Day, he was still part of the COG Navy, but after the chaotic events of Eday, the Navy basically fell apart shortly after. Dizzy was able to rejoin the COG under Operation Lifeboat 9 years later, but that story has nothing to do with Emergence Day, so I really doubt we'll see our boy Dizzy return, which really is a shame because he's such a goated character. But yeah, I'd say don't expect to see him in Eday. Michael Barrick, from Gears 3's DLC, Ram's Shadow, as well as the comics. There isn't much backstory on what happened to him on Eday, but he was a civilian, and after the Hammer of Dawn strikes 1 year later, he became stranded, just like many others. And in 9AE, just like Dizzy, he also joined the COG under Operation Lifeboat.
How many? Did any of them make it?
I'm not sure.
Damn it. We couldn't even protect an evac point with kids in it.
The COG does what it can for its people, Corporal. That's why we're here. Keep moving.
The COG does what it can for its people? Well, I'll tell you what the COG did for me. The COG blew up my house. The COG destroyed everything I had. And when I was stranded and had no other choices, the COG gave me a gun and sent me here to do the same thing to someone else.
Barrick unfortunately won't be in the game either, since he had no involvement with the COG at that time, and he wouldn't have been in Kelowna either. Barrick is another amazing character who I really love, but just like Dizzy, I'd say don't expect him to appear in the game. Jace Stratton. He was only a kid on Emergence Day, and he also lived in Alima City, so Jace will definitely not be in the game, that's guaranteed. We also have Samantha Byrne. I doubt she will be in Gears Eday. She was born in 17 BE, so she was 17 years old when Emergence Day took place, but she lived in Anvagard, in the nation of Kashkur, and she joined the COG years later, I believe. Bernadette Mataki. Now Bernie was home in Galangi on Emergence Day, as she was still recovering from a leg injury from Operation Leveler. Galangi was actually never attacked by the Locust, as it was on the other side of a deep marine trench that the Locust couldn't dig under, and she was kinda doing her own thing anyway, and then tried to head towards Ephera. So yeah, don't expect Bernie to appear in the game. Alicia Valera. We don't really know how old she was in the Realm's Shadow DLC. She grew up in Alima City, and if by any chance she was a gear on Eday, then you could possibly have Valera stationed somewhere nearby. That's always possible. We don't really know how old she is, but she can always be around 18 years old on Eday, being seen as a recruit on that day. We also have Sofia Hendrick. She joined the COG on Emergence Day, but she was also sent to join the Halvor Bay Military Academy to become an officer cadet in the Onyx Guard. So that just ties into Gears Judgment's story, so we won't see Sofia in the game. Garron Paduk. He was in Goraznia on Emergence Day, which was destroyed by General Khan and his forces.
Colonel, Paduk here. This grub, Goraznia, they called him Khan. This isn't Goraznia. My army threw all we have at him.
Paduk and some Gorazni were rescued by the COG Navy, but because the nation of Goraznia never surrendered at the end of the Pendulum Wars, Paduk was originally kept as a prisoner of war, but Paduk wanted vengeance against the Locust, and therefore he became the charter member of the COG's Open Arms program, where former enemy combatants would join the COG to fight the Locust. So in terms of Paduk's story, him and his people were busy getting destroyed in Goraznia on Emergence Day, but even then his story ties into Gears Judgment, and that story has nothing to do with Kelowna or Marcus and Dom. There's Alex Brand from the comics and books. She was only 5 years old when Emergence Day took place, and she lived in the city of Jelaine, so yeah, that basically takes her out of the equation. Another character from the comics was Jonathan Harper, a gear whose lore story I've also covered on the channel. I would have absolutely loved to see him appear in Gears Eday, but unfortunately, according to the lore, he was born 15 years before Emergence Day, making him 15 years old when the event took place. He joined the COG 5 years later when he turned 20 years old, which is outside the timeline we're looking at in this game. Finally, we shall talk Carmines to end things off. We know the youngest Carmine brother was Benjamin, and he was born only 4 years before Eday, but we don't know which years the other brothers were born in, but we'll generally assume that they're all born within a 10 to 14 year time span. Clayton is the eldest brother, so with this theory you can have Clayton Carmine being 18 years old on Eday, as he enlists to join the war against the Locust Horde potentially. Or you could just say that all 4 Carmine brothers were too young, and potentially have their father appear, Big Daddy Carmine. Maybe he could be Will Carmine's brother, the Carmine who unfortunately died on Emergence Day. Either way, whatever it is, I think you gotta have a Carmine or two die on Eday for the culture. It just has to happen, especially considering it's the start of the war. Okay, so let's finally round up all the characters and conclude who I think will actually appear in Gears of War Eday. I think Tai Kaliso and Padrick Salton will be in our squad in the game. Baird and Cole unfortunately won't be in our squad, but Cole could have a little cameo as the Thrashball star that he is before Emergence Day, but Baird could potentially be heard on comms. I think Carlos Santiago will be seen in the prologue, or at least mentioned multiple times throughout the game by Marcus and Dom, I think Adam Fenix will appear in cutscenes regarding the Lancer Chainsaw development and even mentioned frequently by Marcus. I believe Anya will be mentioned as well by Marcus, but I'm not sure if she'll be seen. I think Maria Santiago and Dom's parents and children will be seen in the game, seeing their deaths and the impact it had on Dom, which is going to be brutal and really heartbreaking to see. I think the COG leadership, in terms of Chairman Thomas Dalyell, General Padrick Salton, and Colonel Victor Hoffman will all appear as they all scramble to find ideas of how on earth to fight the Locust on Emergence Day, as well as being updated on the Hammer of Dawn technology by Adam Fenix. And I think there'll be a Carmine appearance in some way, shape or form, whether it's a young Clayton, or the Carmine's dad, or just another Carmine relative being killed on Eday. Other than that, I think there would be room to open up some possibilities to see some new fan favourite characters appear hopefully. I know it's sad, and I'm really gutted that we won't see guys like Barrick and Dizzy in the game, but hopefully this gives a chance to see some new side characters win us over, but also it's a big opportunity to flesh out some characters from the extended media, like Padrick Salton, Carlos Santiago of course, Chairman Dalyell, General Salaman, and it's going to be really good to see Adam Fenix again, so there are definitely a lot of positives to take from all of this as well. But that, my friends, is my ultimate lore discussion on which characters will appear in Gears of War Eday, but I really enjoyed discussing all of the character possibilities. But I want to know what you think as well, so please do comment below with your thoughts, and I'll always try to read and respond to as many comments as possible. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more juicy content on the way. And a big special thank you to the YouTube and Patreon members for your additional support as always. I'm your host Abz, and I'll catch you guys next time.